Tonight on The ReidOut.
He also has crossed out, I want to be very clear, you do not represent me. You do not represent our movement. Do you remember, do you know why he crossed that language out of the statement?
I don't.
January 6th committee drops a new tape of some previously unseen video, and it reveals what Trump could not bring himself to say after the terrorist attack on the Capitol. Also tonight, the World Health Organization is now calling monkeypox a global health emergency. So how worried should we be? And Vice President Kamala Harris is in Indiana urging Democrats to fight back as Republican state legislators begin a special session to take away women's reproductive rights. Good evening, everyone. I'm Jason Johnson, in tonight for Joy Reid. Well, we won't be seeing the January 6th Select Committee again until the fall season in September. We did get a taste of what they have in store, and it's another shocking revelation about how the former president was dogmatically opposed to criticizing his terrorist supporters who just so happened to be ransacking the Capitol, beating police, and threatening to assassinate his former vice president. In the previously unseen video released today by committee member Elaine Luria, we see testimony from some of Trump's closest aides and confidants about the day after the attack. It's here where we see that President Trump refused recommendations that he repudiate in the strongest terms those who laid siege to the Capitol.
I thought we should give the statement on the 7th and obviously move forward on transition.
I sat with her, I spoke to Miller about trying to put together some draft remarks for Jan 7 that we were going to present to the president.
In my view, he needed to express very clearly that the people who committed violent acts, went into the Capitol, did what they did, should be prosecuted and should be arrested.
It looks like here that he crossed out that he was directing the Department of Justice to ensure all lawbreakers are prosecuted to the full extent of the law. We must send a clear message, not with mercy, but with justice. Legal consequences must be swift and firm. Do you know why he wanted that crossed out?
I don't know.
The former president, who relished the events of January 6th, remember he was thrilled by this attack, was seemingly so opposed to criticism of the day and the day's activities that his son-in-law had to enlist the help of Trump's body man, John McAtee, to persuade the former president to actually address the nation.
He knew, since I'm always with him, that, hey, if he asks your opinion, try to nudge this along. This will help everything cool down. So that's what I did.
Nudge it along in what way? What does that mean?
To make sure he delivers this speech or whatever it was.
Was the implication that the president was in some ways reluctant to give that speech?
Yeah.
Okay, what do you base that on?
The fact that somebody has to tell me to nudge it along.
Somebody had to tell him to stop terrorists. Over the weekend, Vice Chair Liz Cheney appeared on Fox News, an audience that hasn't seen much of the committee's evidence.
This was a fundamental assault and an attack on our democracy. We had a president who sent a mob that he knew was armed to the Capitol to attack and invade while we were counting electoral votes, delayed the count of those votes. And while the attack was underway, it is unquestionable that he did not tell them to go home for hours. And investigating that attack and what led to it and what we need to do legislatively to make sure it never happens again is our fundamental responsibility.
I'm sure the audience was shocked. While the committee is set to reveal new avenues of their investigation, they have yet to secure some key interviews. Also appearing on CNN, Representative Cheney said the committee was weighing a subpoena for Ginny Thomas, wife of Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas. Ms. Thomas has been a vocal proponent of overturning the election and had communicated with Trump's former chief of staff, Mark Meadows, and John Eastman, author of the now infamous and unconstitutional memo that was used as a predicate to overturn the election. Ms. Thomas had originally told the Daily Caller that she was eager to speak with the committee to, clear up misconceptions, but now her lawyer is sending a different message, demanding, quote, better justification for her voluntary appearance. The committee is still negotiating with her lawyer. Meanwhile, the committee is striking out with President Trump's former Secret Service detail. Earlier this month, Trump's top Secret Service agents and political allies tried to undermine former White House aide Cassidy Hutchinson after she relayed a story about how an unhinged former president lashing out at agents because they wouldn't let him join the insurrectionists on Capitol Hill. Those two guys, Tony Ornato and Bobby Engel, have hired personal lawyers and have yet to cooperate with the committee regarding follow-up interviews. This is a lot. Joining me now is Joyce Vance, professor at the University of Alabama School of Law and a former U.S. attorney, and Abdallah Fayyad, opinion writer for the Boston Globe. Thank you all so much. I am a hand-rubbing meme tonight. Joyce, I'm going to start with you. I think one of the most important things that we're hearing about right now is these two Secret Service agents who have lawyered up, okay? In the history of, I guess, investigations and Secret Service agents, how serious is that? How serious is it that Secret Service agents are afraid to testify to a committee that doesn't really have enforcement power, but they nevertheless still feel the need to get lawyers?
So I'll pump the brakes on that just a little bit, Jason, to this extent. A criminal investigation by the IG has been announced. It makes good sense for anyone who's within the ambit of that investigation to have legal counsel representing them. What's a little bit usual here, though, is this notion that they've hired private counsel. Typically, they might go to the Agents Association, which keeps lawyers on retainer, and use some of those essentially in-house folks. This certainly signals a level of concern. And that's what's so shocking here, the notion that Secret Service agents who are typically held in very high regard, who are very clear that they serve the presidency of the United States, not the current incumbent of that office, that they would be wrapped up, embroiled in a political scandal of any hue is really unprecedented in the agency's history. And yet, it doesn't strike me as that shocking. I don't see how an attempted coup could happen if you didn't have some of the Palace Guard involved. With that in mind, Abdallah, you have a great op-ed in the Boston Globe this week where you're talking about why and how Merrick Garland must hold Trump accountable and must put him on trial. Just tell us a little bit about your sort of main point with the editorial board here. What are you guys really pushing for?
Well, thanks for the question, Jason, and thanks for having me on. This was a case that we laid out last year at first. We called we called for the prosecution of Donald Trump back in June of 2021. But after the January 6th committee first aired its public hearings, we wanted to reiterate the call because now it's undeniable that Trump is clearly responsible for the events that ultimately transpired on January 6th. And there are many arguments and reasonable ones for why you might not want to do this. But ultimately, we have to think about what messages we're sending to future administrations if we don't hold the Trump administration accountable for trying to overthrow the U.S. government. I mean, Donald Trump tried to foment a coup in America, and he failed. But if he doesn't face any consequences for his actions, well, that tells any future holder of the office that you can try to overthrow the government, and if you fail, you won't face any consequences.
And here's the thing. If you talk to security experts, they haven't failed. Because unless you jail the people who tried to overthrow the government, they keep at it. They have not failed until they are jailed or punished or in some shape, way, or form prevented from engaging that activity again. With that in mind, Joyce, I want to play you some sound. We're not the only people here who have been critical of Merrick Garland and have made the argument that he needs to be doing something, that he needs to, bare minimum, instill some confidence in the public. I'm going to play this sound, get your thoughts on the other side.
We've not decided yet as a committee whether we're going to make criminal referrals, but that's absolutely something we're looking at.
I sure as hell hope they have a criminal investigation at this point into Donald Trump. Merrick Garland has already told us he's listening, and if he's watching today, I'd tell him he doesn't need to wait on us because I think he has plenty to keep moving forward.
I certainly hope they're moving forward. I certainly think there's evidence of crimes, and I think it goes all the way up to Donald Trump.
Mueller said that he believed that the president could be prosecuted, that former President Donald Trump could be prosecuted. You have members of the committee who say they hope Merrick Garland is going to do something. Look, I've long since given up on believing that Merrick Garland is operating on any sort of timeline that would actually comfort me or most people who are concerned in America. But, Joyce, I am curious, do you think it matters that there's now a constant drumbeat? Like, maybe 3 or 4 months ago, we've got to wait for Merrick Garland crowd had some credibility. But now you've got people on the actual committee saying, dude, catch up with us. Why are you not where we are? Do you think that's resonating? If not with Garland himself, then maybe other people working for him and with him in the Department of Justice.
The problem with how DOJ operates, at least from my perspective, no longer being a DOJ employee and being a member of the public, is that it's just opaque. You don't really have any idea what's going on behind the curtain. And I'll just share with you, Jason, that I can recall cases where we had the public wondering what was going on, why the U.S. Attorney's Office wasn't taking steps to indict someone when we were on one occasion just days away from handing down an indictment. That's the level of just complete opacity that DOJ is used to operating with. That's not very comforting for any of us. But what we're finally starting to see, and we don't know the reasons, you know, because you and I have discussed, I had deep concerns during the first year that Merrick Garland was in office, that we weren't seeing the signs I would have expected to see if there was some sort of investigation going on into those most responsible for January 6th. We didn't see, for instance, signs of people being brought in front of the grand jury. Well, today we learned that just last Friday, Mark Short, Mike Pence's chief of staff, testified under a subpoena in the grand jury that DOJ is running in the District of Columbia. That's a positive sign and a good step forward.